Hey everyone, welcome back to the sound off segment of the Daily Blend show with me, Reed Daily. This is the week of March 2025. And if you are new around here, this is the segment of the Daily Blend show where we feature what's going on across the Daily Blend, special projects I'm involved with, and highlighting some of the top news stories that I find interesting from the World Wide Web. Before we jump in the show, I want to remind you we are on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. If you're a social person, and I am, out on Daily Blend on X and Instagram. You can also find me on LinkedIn, X, and Instagram at Read Daily. With that said, let's jump in the show. So, very happy with some of the progress I've been making with the Daily Blend podcast. I know we're on the Daily Blend show, but I've been doing that for 10 or 15 years. And I had, a friend of mine really tell me that I was doing too much on my own sort of personal brand and Daily Blend and sort of like blending too much. And I really needed to define these sort of different channels and blends. So over the last year, I've set up Read Daily Music and then the Daily Blend podcast as their sort of own entities. And they both have their own YouTube and Instagram accounts, and they've just been special projects. So the Daily Blend podcast is mostly house and tech house, and I put out new mixes. I wouldn't say every week, but every couple weeks. And, putting those out on SoundCloud to Apple Podcast and then having them available to stream on YouTube is just a creative outlet that I enjoy and it's fun. And not really trying to do much in terms of a middle-aged DJ here, but I still continue to have fun with DJ equipment and live production and technology. And so the way I'm thinking about it is the Daily Blend podcast is very much sort of like a studio mix. I've got my Read Daily Music project, which is going to be a little more, I'll call it art-inspired music and thematic mixes. And then Sunday sessions, what I want to do is really continue to experiment with technology in different ways in mixing. So the other day, I actually went out and bought this little Hercules mixer. It's like the size of an iPad, much thicker, and it does a lot of the same great stuff that DJ equipment, the big rigs. It just works with some, in this case, software. More specifically, I think it's called Algorithm DJ or DJ Algorithm, which does a lot of stuff off your phone. And so the next Sunday sessions, I'm going to try to do it, using this little controller in my iPhone and try to find a way to sort of record that mix through one of the many pieces of gear I have. So be on the look for that. But I'm going to put the show link, the note and links in the show notes for the Daily Blend podcast. So you can go find that on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, and over on YouTube. So don't forget to check that out. Really happy with kind of where I'm going with some of my mixes. A lot of house, a lot of tech house. In terms of what's going on with the Daily Blend show. So been sort of tweaking the Daily Blend show, and I think I've got it nailed. So I think on Tuesdays, we're going to do the rundown, which is the show you're listening to. And the rundown is sort of just things that I'm involved with, things within Daily Blend, and then sort of special projects and sort of topical things that I find interesting in the news. And then on Thursdays, we're going to do the sound off segment of the show. We're doing Q&A interviews with folks. And then sort of the third leg of that tripod is on Saturdays doing the newsletter. So moving the newsletter from Fridays to Saturdays. The reason for that is one, I just kept on missing getting it out on Fridays. It was just the end of the week, and it just always seemed to get pushed back, and I always end up having a little bit more time Friday nights and sort of Saturday mornings early to sort of craft that. And I also thought it was a little weird to like be showcasing sort of, I'll call it weekend and activities like Friday morning, which is when that was going out. And it just felt way more appropriate to come out on Saturday mornings. So those are sort of the three pieces of the Daily Blend show. So it's the rundown on Tuesdays. It will be sound off segments on Thursdays, and then the newsletter on Saturdays. Now, I fully anticipate the rundown on Tuesdays and the newsletter to become much more of staples. And then the sound off segments will probably not be as every Thursday. Just trying to schedule and execute some of those Q&A interviews. It just takes up more time than you would ever imagine, but we're going to get there. We're talking with a virtual assistant to help us with some of those activities. And so my hope is that we get those going and you'll hear much more of those interviews in 2025. In terms of what's going on with the broader Daily Blend, continuing to do special projects, things I'm interested in, and you'll see a lot of that content on the features tab if you go to daileyblend.com. So with all that said, I want to highlight sort of two things that are coming up. The first is our first sort of 2025 Q&A interview, or sorry, it's our second one with Luke out of Canada. So I met Luke through the internet. Luke had this fantastic Instagram account called _coffee and kicks. I reached out to him during the lockdown, and I was able to get a copy of his coloring book. We ended up, becoming friends over the internet, if you will. And I've used his coloring book many times, and we talk about the coloring book, his creative endeavors, and his new agency. So be on the lookout for that interview, which will launch on Monday. In terms of special projects going on with Daily Blend, well, we're continuing to push out content on the golf project. If you can't tell, the hat I am wearing is one of our sample hats, our second round of sample hats for the golf project. We're looking at the S for Sheridan. That's the working name that we're going with. And if you go over and check out the Sheridan Instagram account, you'll start to see content for Sheridan, which is the name we're going with, like I said, coming up. So more on that. We've got second round of polo samples coming in. The first one I liked the cut, I liked the look. I just didn't like the sheen of the fabric. Actually, maybe I'll take some pictures of those and put those on the web. And then we did the first round of hats. We're going to do a third round of hats, and then we're going to do a sample on gloves. And then we're going to get ready to launch this company. We've been debating how to do it. I think that towards it is doing sort of a release of some images and let people do pre-buys, and then we're going to do our first order of products and get people their products before summertime. This has been a passion project. I am oversimplifying the amount of hours, weekends that I've been putting into this company, and looking forward to start to share that more with you guys on this show and on my personal Instagram account and on the web. What else is going on with Daily Blend? Well, in terms of me, got some really great events and travel coming up. I'm heading to Boston in a couple weeks for a few networking events and meeting with friends. And then in Chicago, I am hosting an FA Chicago Summit event. So we are talking about manufacturing. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll be able to you'll be able to sort of follow along about a little more on the details of that event. I'll be sharing it. We're doing an hour and a half overview presentation and Q&A at a pinball manufacturing facility. So it's going to be really fun to host that event and get the opportunity to play with some of the pinball machines and learn about a little more about manufacturing pinballs. In terms of personal stuff, what's going on, we are getting close to golf season here in Chicago. I know all of my friends down in Georgia have been texting me and DMing me that when I post it, golf season yet, it's like, hey, it never stopped. And I'm fired up because of a couple things. One, I finally signed up for Fair Game, and this is the app that Ben from Houdinki launched. And if you know Houdinki, you know they have just like a really clean aesthetic, and the app is very similar in terms of the look and feel. So I appreciate that. But it's like if Instagram and Golf Handicap Index, so GIN, came together and formed a company. And that's what Fair Game seems like. So I'm going to be entering my scores in there, putting pictures from the courses. I played for the first time last week when it was super warm, got to go out, played on a Saturday with my daughter. I played 9 holes. It was so much fun. And then on Sunday it snowed. So typical Chicago spring. But the goal is to get to shooting 85 and under on every round. And I took my first lesson today. So I got to go down to the campus, the Northwestern campus, and go into the golf practice facility, which I didn't even know they had. I knew that colleges have these facilities, but my only sort of experience is the one with the D3 school right down the road, which is a single hitting bay and basically the boiler room that they turned into a putting surface. And this is very different. They had multiple bays, a oscillating putting facility, and then like a huge area for chipping and putting, similar to what I've seen from like the golf league down in Florida. So it was really cool to get to go down there. It's been a long time since I've had a coach, and I thought it was like I walked out of the session thinking that was pretty interesting that I essentially sell consulting services in my day job, and that I hadn't hired a coach in a long time. And sure, you spend a little bit of money, you get instant results, and I think I'm going to take a cue and start to use more consultants in my life, from everything from working out to helping me with like meal prep, and including helping me with this show to make it a little more dialed in. But excited to continue with my golf journey, and I'm hoping that having a coach this season is dramatically going to increase my enjoyment of the game and lower my score. In terms of other things going on with the for the golf stuff, I will share all the links to both my GIN number and my Fair Game account, and so you can follow along with me on both those apps and services, depending on one you like. Outside of that, doing a little bit of traveling, like I mentioned, and doing a lot of content creation. So expect more. I distilled or sort of simplified what we were doing on Dailey Blend, I think pretty succinctly on this show, but it took a lot of thinking back and forth and talking to friends, talking to mentors. And I think I'm really happy with where I landed in terms of the focus of this show and sort of the anchors. And, like I said, I really wanted this show as an opportunity to meet people and connect with people and showcase what they were doing and learn and share my learnings with others. And so I'm going to be spending a whole lot more time not only reaching out to people, but hopefully doing a lot more interviewing with folks, both nationally, internationally, but in my local community. And that's one of my big goals of this year, is to have 5 or 10 interviews with sort of local Chicago, Illinois people that either I know or are sort of friends of friends, and say, hey, this person's doing something special. You need to go meet them. You need to shine a spotlight on them. So if you're listening to this show and you live in the Illinois area and you've got some friends that sort of fit that, model, or you're an entrepreneur, you're an operator, you've got a great story to tell, a brand you want to showcase and spotlight, send me a DM, send me an email at Reed Dailey, and let's get you on the show. All right, that wraps it up for this week's episode of The Rundown. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to having you join us on Thursday with Luke. And with that said, we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.